Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OT Sims. I am Onni Escola, aka Evan. Joining me here is Trunin, also known as Sam. How you doing today, Sam?
Fantastic.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Excited to talk about some PXF football from last night. Do you have any thoughts here as we got the league season 3 kicked off with a few games yesterday?
Yeah, always fun to get a new season going. I was pleasantly surprised to see some defense played much better than season 2. Felt really good, but for my game, team executed what I wanted to have as far as balance. We played great on defense. It was a lot of fun, and the defending champions start out with a loss, so that's good in this situation.
Yeah, for sure. I think defense, we made that one little slider adjustment. I think the defensive play is a little bit better. Obviously, the second game yesterday, score kind of ran up a little bit, but I think I mentioned to you in DMs or something like that, when one team scores a bunch, it kind of messes with the flow of the game and it opens wide up. So I think both teams kind of a lot more points than they normally would have, just because there was a couple big plays there in the third quarter. So
yeah, and it's going to be expected for Chicago to struggle on defense early because they have a lot of rookies on that side of the ball. So it's not really a surprise to see that it's going to take them a while to build up their speed. So that one didn't really surprise me too much.
Yeah, no, me neither. And yeah, I was a little surprised we allowed as many as we did, but like I said, I think the one team scoring kind of messes with the game flow a little bit. So when we score a bunch, our defense lets up a bunch, and it is, maybe our defense isn't as good as I thought coming in, but I don't know. They played pretty good yesterday, got 5 takeaways, so not too concerned about it. So I guess we'll just go quickly game by game. Talk about each game specifically, and then maybe preview next week. So first up was San Fran at Atlanta, finals rematch. The whole game. This one, it was your team, obviously, and you guys took the win by 10, 23-13, I think was the final score. And we put out that pick'em poll, and going into the game yesterday, the submissions said that where is it here? 60, or basically 2/3 of submissions were picking you guys to win. Obviously, you did by 10. Any takeaways from that game specifically?
Yeah, it felt good. I think that the big off-season move for us, the way we did free agency, we could only pick up one player, and we had an opening at quarterback since our quarterback went over to take over Chicago. So we were able to bring Webster back in from season 1, and it felt great having him back there, because there was a couple times that he didn't make like a flashy play, but he'd either roll out and then throw it away, or make a good decision, or when he would force it, it would be either my guy catches it or nobody. It was the limiting errors is what was the best part about having him back on the team. So did a great job. Didn't have any big stats, but I told him when we were bringing him back to our team doesn't look for stats, we look for victories. So he did a great job, and he's a perfect fit for what we got going on. He's doing some progressing in play action to go with our rushing attack. So I thought it felt really good. We do pride ourselves on defense. Last season we led the league in points allowed. I believe we passed the Falcons. If not, we had the score differential, one or the other. But our defense played really well yesterday, turning the ball over, held them to only, I believe, 16 yards rushing. So it was a great first game for us. And I believe Dragon only had like 27 yards or something in that range. So felt really good. The Falcons, they definitely have their bright spots. I think I said in the chat that for Shad, it felt like we couldn't get anywhere because he was so fast on stopping the run. I had quite a few yards, but that was because we were able to get a lot of carries. Yards per carry was pretty low because he was just making every play. Did really well. Um, but the first drive was kind of what we wanted to see. I think we took 7.5 minutes off. I think the first drive, something like that, and kind of controlled it from there. They did come back and tie it, but that was 10-10. I believe we were tied, and then we kind of took control from there.
Yeah, for sure. That opening drive, you guys, yeah, I think it was like 7 minutes and 18 seconds or 28 seconds, something like that. And it was just, yeah, like I think Webster was 6 of 6 or 7 of 7 on it. And like obviously you had a bunch of carries as well. So just one of those drives where, you're taking the little chunks, you're not trying to air it out and go for the big score. And then came up with the touchdown. And I think even Atlanta, I was expecting them to come out and just basically tie the game within, 30 seconds with a deep ball to Dragon or Danielson. But I think with the improved defense and the just overall direction of the league, I think they actually took their time a little bit, and their touchdown was a passing touchdown, but it was only like maybe 20, 25 yards or something like that, if that, and it was over the middle to their slot receiver, and nothing crazy deep or anything like that. So yeah, it was good to see. I think it was a good game all around, and then obviously, only what was it, 39 points or 36 points or something between the two teams. Not a crazy high scoring one, so that's awesome as well with the defensive play that we were talking about. All right, so next up was the Steelers at the Bears. I know you watched maybe about half of the game before you had to take off for dinner. I watched the whole thing. Obviously, is my team playing, and I'm streaming. So this one was a bit higher scoring, kind of more towards what we saw in season 2. It ended up being 61-42 for the Steelers in the end of it. The predictions were 77.8% in favor of the Steelers, which means 77.8% of people were correct in this game. We talked about it a little bit off air. Higher scoring than I think we maybe expected, but like you mentioned, Chicago with a lot of rookies on defense, it's going to be expected to see them, maybe struggle a little bit early on as far as stopping points going up, but. They kept pace for a while. It was 45-42 at one point before, Steelers got a couple late scorers. And, one takeaway from this was Amelia Rose did something. I don't know if it's ever been done in PXF. I doubt it. But I know it's only happened 4 times in the real NFL, and that is he had a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown in the same game. Christian McCaffrey did it for the 49ers in real life last season, and he was the 4th player ever to do it. And I think Rose might be the first PXF player to ever do it. So that was pretty impressive to watch. 135 yards rushing on 11 carries. So a good game for him and a nice win all around. Any thoughts on what you did see from that game there, Sam?
I think you guys doubled the amount of receptions from a tight end from last season.
It felt like we were going too early. We had 3 catches in the first quarter. I was excited, and then it fell off after that.
Yeah, I think that, this first game, obviously a new playbook with Potty running the Bears, and it was extremely pass heavy. He had 1 rush attempt. I don't know how much of that is because they fell behind and how much of it's just, we've talked about it plenty of struggling to be able to find a way to get running plays called. So I think that's one thing that definitely caught my eye. I think I asked you at one point in DMs if he even had any run plays in his playbook because I didn't feel like they had any carries, and I don't think they did at the time because they only ended up with 1 for the whole game. So another crazy stat that I saw, and I just never catches my mind. It should have with all the Cowboy games last season, but they had 11 kick returns by Guns. So he had well over 1,000% more kick returns than rushing attempts. So it is a stat that stood out to me for some reason. And Rose not only threw a touchdown, but was the highest rated passer in the game. But always fun to watch. You guys got all that speed out of the backfield. Rose doesn't get a ton of carries, but when he gets them, they go. So you guys definitely look tough, and the Bears, quite frankly, to me, looked a little bit better than I thought they would. I thought you guys would have, put it out of control quick, and maybe they wouldn't have scored that many points. But they looked like they have potential on defense. They're just slow because they're young, and as that picks up, they're going to be. I think they're going to be a decent team as the season gets rolling.
Yeah, for sure. With tons of rookies on that team, I was kind of thinking the same as you, not expecting a whole lot, but yeah, they kept it close a lot longer. And like there was one game where we played Dallas last season, and it was out of like Dallas scored a bunch, but it was out of control pretty much right from the jump. I think we put up 73 or something, and they scored like 50, but it was never close at any point in the game, really. So I was thinking if it was going to be a high scoring game with how many rookies they have, it might be another one of those. But they kept it, like I said, it was 45-42 late in the third quarter, I think it was. So maybe early fourth, I'm not sure. But yeah, they definitely played well and had me sweating for a little bit there. But started off on the win, which is nice.
Yeah,
Um,
it was close enough when I was still watching that there were people that were on the Steelers, bad mouthing Squibs, talking about the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator. So it was close enough early that there was a little bit of infighting going on. So that's definitely how close it was.
yeah, a little bit of nerves, but yeah, then our defense scored a touchdown on a strip sack. And Bolton ended up with 3 interceptions, and Harper picked up his, you know, automatic interception late in the game as well. Um, so our defense kind of came through with the turnovers and helped seal it for us late, but um, definitely a bit nerve wracking for a bit there.
And Rose was near 200 yards total. Actually, if you
Yeah,
add in his passing yards, I think he was at 200 yards total. Uh, Averaged over 10 yards per catch and over 12 yards per carry. So I think that, we didn't talk about it beforehand, but I think there's probably a player of the week in that stat line.
yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, I mentioned 135 yards on 11 carries. I think his receiving was 6 catches for 64, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my
Correct.
head.
And one of those is for touchdown as well.
Yeah, and then the 3 passing yards on 2 completions on those little wildcat touch plays, and yeah, passing, receiving, and rushing touchdowns. So hell of a game for Rose for sure. So yeah, 135, 64, and 3. That's I guess that's 202 or something like that total if you count passing yards. So yeah, hell of a game for him for sure. All right, so the game from last night was Miami at Philly. This one had 61% picking Philly, and they were incorrect, unfortunately, for the Eagles, as the Dolphins took this one by a score of, where is it here? 31-21 was the final. The Dolphins were up by 3 scores at one point. Eagles clawed it back, and it was actually scoreless after the first quarter, which isn't something we saw a ton of last season for sure, or really ever in our league's history that I can think of. I know you just caught kind of the tail end of this one. It was kind of close at the beginning, close at the end. Gap kind of widened a little bit in the middle there. Obviously, the rookie quarterback for the Eagles struggled a little bit as well. Any thoughts in general on these two teams?
Well, I didn't go back and watch what I missed, but I did check the stats, and there's a lot of talk about the rookie QB struggling. He only had 7 incompletions and
Mm-hmm.
only 1 pick, so it wasn't a
Yeah,
horrible game. But then you look at Ron Mexico. I don't know how these completions were, but to be 30 of 34, I don't know if he had a bunch of touch passes like they did a lot in season 1, or
he had a few for sure, not tons, but he had a couple.
yeah, that's impressive. 88% completion percentage. And when I watched late, they were kind of in control, but he was completing everything when I was watching. So uh, Dolphins looked pretty good. They looked good in stretches last season until they started struggling on defense. So if they can play defense, then I think they're another team that's really got a shot.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing with this, it's a 6-team league and it's still pretty young. So, even the Eagles or the Bears who maybe struggle a little bit this week, I think, with the right progressions and game planning, you never know, they could turn things around and make a run for it too. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, Lopez played great. I thought, James had some nice plays. Yeah, had a touchdown, maybe 2 touchdown passes. I can't remember if he had
Yeah,
one or
two.
two. Two. Okay, yeah, he had two. He threw one pick. And honestly, I think just the word, sorry, tripping over my words here, but where he struggled the most, I think, won't really show up in the stat line. I think it was just struggling with the pressure. Miami's defensive line generated some pretty good pressure early on in the game, and it kind of rattled them, and ended up having to throw stuff away or take sacks or throw out of a sack a couple times. So just not being able to get the ball away, which I think is something we saw Squibb struggle with a lot in season 1 and part of season 2. Now he gets it away a little quicker. He's still throwing off his back foot, but one thing at a time. And so that was something that I think their rookie quarterback struggled with a little bit, is holding on to the ball maybe a little too long. But yeah, overall, his stat line was not horrible. I think his passer rating, if memory serves, was 108.4 or something like that. So a pretty decent game for him stat wise, and yeah, they made it close towards the end, and only 10 points, negative 10 points on their point difference, so not terrible. And then add in what they scored, and they're actually, after tiebreakers and everything, would be sitting in 4th place, best out of the losing teams. So not a horrible game for them overall, that's for sure.
Yeah, and again, just more of a game flow question. Krieg had only, I think it was 4 carries or 5 carries, somewhere in there, 7 maybe. But he
7, I
averaged
think. Yeah.
he averaged over 4 yards a carry. Was it just the situationally why they didn't run the ball, or did it seem like they were throwing from the beginning?
Yeah, a little. I think a little bit of both. I think they kind of struggle with the same thing a lot of us do, where even I've got Rose in the backfield. I'd love to get him more carries, but just trying to figure out that balance a little bit, I think they struggle with. So then you add in the fact that they went down by 2 or 3 touchdowns at one point. They were kind of forced to throw it. So maybe if they didn't go down by 3 scores, they might have reached 10, 11, 12 carries, something like that. But so it wasn't like they were running a whole lot before, but I do think the game flow impacted that as well.
And then I was also a little surprised to see Freddie only had 1 catch. I mean, obviously Britton went off and had a great game, but uh, caught me a little bit off guard that Freddie, their big free agent acquisition, he didn't get involved. And I don't know what balance you're talking about. I had 24 rush attempts and 27 pass attempts. So,
Yeah, the one team to figure it out so far. Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned Freddie. That was another thing I noticed, is not just Freddie, but wide receiver ones in general, I found just didn't really do much yesterday. On the Steelers, we don't really have a true one. We have, I guess Carter's probably technically the one. Schvetz had a big day yesterday. I think 198 yards or something like that on 10 catches. I ended up with 5 for 148 and 2 or something like that. So it's still a pretty good game, but I was quiet for most of the game. I think I had no catches till the second half. And then you look at the Falcons, where their damage was done in the passing game. I think it was actually Forrest Gump did most of it. Their wide receiver 3. Like you mentioned, Dragon didn't really do much. Danielson had a few big catches and stuff, but I think Gump was their top receiver,
well,
if I'm not mistaken.
no, it was Danielson, but it was when they had him in the slot. I don't think he had very many
Right.
catches on the outside, but they had him in there as their third receiver in slot situations. So he had a lot over the middle, and I think it probably has to do with not just the number one corner kind of locking the guy down, but maybe being closer and other receivers being more open. So they're
Could
feeding
be.
them a little bit more. But uh,
Yeah.
definitely was a trend. They didn't, during our game, Cam mentioned a couple times, are they ever going to throw a ball my way? And it's, I'd rather him not, because that cuts the field in half. But
Yeah. True.
the cornerback ones are for the teams are definitely stepping up.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other one I was going to mention too is Matt Green on Chicago. Did a little bit of damage out of the slot, but yeah, he didn't do much either. And Jonathan, I think Luger, JBL, former, he was on your team last season. He ended up with, a ton of catches and a touchdown, and he was actually working on Harper. I joked to Matt that JBL did more against Dominic Harper than Matt did in both attempts last season, and yeah, so it's just kind of interesting to see like the number one receivers not really feasting the way that they had in the past, and those second, third, and fourth options coming through a little bit more for teams. All right, so unless you have anything else on that, I think that pretty much covers the week one recap. Quick preview for week two. We got the matchup of the commissioners next week with Pittsburgh at San Francisco to kick off the week. Atlanta at Miami to close it out. Any thoughts on those matchups coming into it for week two?
Well, obviously, the game of the week is the two of us starting 1-0 and then facing off in week two. You broke up a little bit, so I didn't hear who was home, and I don't have the schedule up, of course. I'd be
You're home,
being way
yeah.
too prepared. Okay, so we know it's going to be some nice weather. Get that run game going and see what we can do.
Yeah, should be a fun matchup. Yeah, you mentioned both of us going 1-0 to start off, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think Philly and Chicago will be a fun one as well. Two teams like we mentioned that struggled a little bit with some of their rookies in some positions this week. So interesting to see how they're going to rebound. And then yeah, Atlanta at Miami, the only one where a team with a win is playing a team with a loss, and if Atlanta has their way and plays well again, it could those teams could both go 1-1 after week two.
Yeah, and I think before the season started, and who knows, even maybe still coming into the week, but I would think that Atlanta would be the favorite in that game. I know that Miami played well yesterday, so could be a chance to get to 500, and there's going to be at least two other teams at 500, so that'll have the standings nice and bunched. But really looking forward to week two and seeing what adjustments are made.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. I posted the week two pick'em today, and it's. I think I messaged you. It feels a lot tougher to predict this week than it did week one for some reason. So, should be a fun week of games, that's for sure.
Well, because now we think we know what we're talking about after watching one game, so now it's harder.
True. Yeah. All right. So that pretty much does it for PXF, unless you have anything else on it. So we will hop over to GOHLS next.
I got nothing else. Just thank you for putting in all the work and getting it ready for us all to be able to watch.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I was really hyped for this season to get going, so the work felt it almost fueled my hype. I was very excited for yesterday, so I'm glad that it went well. All right, so let's hop over to GOHLS now, talk a little bit about the upcoming Season 7. Preseason's underway right now. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting Season 7 kicked off in a couple of days here. Do you have any thoughts on expectations for the Navigators, or just general thoughts on the season before we dive into some rankings and stuff?
Yeah, I'm very excited for the season. As far as specifically for the Navigators, I think that we're in a spot where we should be looking to contend to get into the playoffs. Definitely not a slam dunk, but we're right there to be in the discussion. And then once you're in the playoffs, everybody's got a shot. We have a highly rated goalie, so some games he can bail us out. So maybe we can get in there and upset somebody and get on to that second round. But first thing we got to do is never been in as a franchise, so we have to get in that first time. And looking forward to the 51 games to try to get there. I had to sit down after you asked us for the power rankings and kind of look at everybody as a whole in the league, and I think we're right there knocking, and it's going to be fun to see if we can get in there. One of the things we do have, just one person that hasn't progged yet, and that means that they're going to be 2 missed ones if they don't get in by tomorrow. So, I hate to bring up a not quite ready yet Merle, but at least with Merle, that you're going to have a guy that's going to be getting his progs in and doing everything he can to make his player be a performer for us. How about over in Turku? I know there's a lot of change and a lot of new faces on just about every team. How are you guys looking going into the season?
Yeah, a lot of change for sure. I haven't done the math, but I would say we probably have, just off the top of my head, 7 or 8 new players on our roster, maybe. That might be a little high, might be a little low. I'm not too sure right now, but yeah, definitely a lot of turnover. Like you mentioned, a lot of teams had. Expectation-wise, I'm not too sure. Kind of feels on day by day. Some days I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be comfortably in a playoff spot. Other days I'm like, we might not make it. Other days I'm like, we're definitely not making it. So I'm not sure. We'll see once the puck drops and lineups are in and stuff like that. Because even through the preseason, I haven't set full lines or strats. Don't like to tip our hand too much with what we're gonna do, especially with some of the coaches, especially in the Europe division that really know what they're doing and can game plan around. So try not to tip our hand too much in the games that don't matter. And yeah, I'm excited to see what happens once game 1 of 51 is actually played, and then I'll maybe know what to expect once we get a couple weeks in to it.
I don't know if I lost you or if I got disconnected on my end, but I didn't hear the very last part there, but I did hear the talking about preseason and where we're at, not tipping the hand. We've done very similar, kind of just run a strat out there to have something in, but we're 2-0 at this point. Scored on the right about the average for the league last season through the 2 games, and then we've held people below the average. So looking forward to it. I've been trying to build the roster to play defense. The old cliche. I don't know how much it holds true in sim hockey, but defense wins championships. It does feel like the teams that have done well over the last couple seasons have played great defense. So that's been our focus, and we're definitely holding people through the preseason to under that goals average. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, kind of cut out there. My phone rang for a second. It kind of cut the audio, I think. So hopefully it came through okay on the show. But yeah, defense is definitely important in the league, and you see, like you mentioned, some of the teams that have done really well have been great defensively, great goaltending. Similar to when Turku, we had a couple of really good seasons. Last season wasn't so great. Some of our earlier seasons weren't, but we had a couple of really good ones in the middle there, and that was when we kind of figured out our defensive side of the game, and brought in a goaltender, brought in some big defensive players. So definitely some big impacts on that side of the puck, I guess, not the ball. But
Yeah, I
all right,
wonder.
so
I wonder how much Chewy and Potty have dove into the numbers on the goalie rankings, because one of the teams in the power rankings I had a hard time on where to place them is Alaska, because obviously they do a great job game planning. They're able to put up a lot of goals, but then this season they're going to have a lower rated goalie, so I didn't quite know where to squeeze them in. I have them in basically at the middle of the field right now, so it'd be interesting to see how much that goalie play impacts a team that still has a lot of high rated players and still looks pretty good, but how much is going to set them back having a lower rated goalie.
yeah, for sure. The rookie goalies, yeah, it's tough to tell, especially because this is going to be the first time that we've had rookie goalies that have progressed this much come into the league. Like last time there was an expansion was 3 seasons ago, so there was definitely like the goalies that those expansion teams got were a little younger by nature and stuff like that. So now, they had a little bit of progression, a little bit of time in the minors, a season or two. But these goalies, some of them have been playing in the minors for 3 seasons. Alaska hasn't been. He's got 1 season under his belt, but like Joey Duncan is one of the rookie goalies. He's played in the minors for 3 seasons, so be interesting to see what happens there. All right, so we'll dive into power rankings a little bit. So I asked all the team owners to do or all the team owners and GMs to have somebody on their team send me a power ranking list, and we're going to compile them all and release an average of some sort of preseason ranking this weekend. But so I won't go over the results so far from everyone, but we can go over the list that you and I submitted, and go from there. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to go down 1 through 20 off each of our lists, or do we want to just kind of talk about some teams that we've gotten maybe surprising spots, or where do you want to start here?
I think maybe our first couple, and then the ones that are kind of out of the. I'm curious if you have anybody different at the top, or if it's if it's the same two that we had last season at the end. That's what I have. I have Vegas 1, Copenhagen 2 right now.
Okay, yeah, I've got the same. I've got Vegas at 1, Copenhagen 2, and then 3 I've got Jacksonville, and then 4 is where I've got Alaska slotted in. But that one feels like a wild card because of that rookie goalie that you mentioned as well.
Yeah, with those I have Jacksonville at 4, so we're pretty
Okay.
close there. And then this is the one where I'll probably take heat and probably eat crow at the end of the season. But I have Alaska down at 10.
Okay. Yeah, that's like I said, I've gotten maybe 10 submissions so far, and 10 isn't the lowest that Alaska's been rated, but 4 where I have them also isn't the highest. So be interesting to see where they finish. They're one of the teams submissions so far.
Yeah, when I had
so we'll see how much that changes, but.
When I had it penciled out, I had them in all different spots too. So that's where I settled. I put them ahead of me so that at least I'm saying, hey, at least I didn't pick myself over you if I'm wrong. So that I have them at 10 and Norfolk at 11, and then some little sharks at 12. So that's the way I have kind of that middle group.
Yeah, and that's kind of the playoff bubble. Maybe that's the next section to talk about for me at the playoff level. I'll start at kind of 10 through 14 or so. I've got Glasgow at 10. 11 is where I've got actually Norfolk as well. I've got Turku at 12. 13, I've got Tennessee. And then 14, I've got Honolulu. So that's kind of what I've got around the playoff bubble.
Out of those ones, I have Tennessee. I have them a bit higher, and it's more about the division they're in, maybe inflating their wins a little bit more. So I mean, the power rankings, who's the best team if you match them all up. But I think that they're going to appear way higher because there are more games in their division. I mean, I have them 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm at 6.
Okay.
And it's more for that reason. I know it's a little counterintuitive with the power rankings, but I just think that it's gonna look like they're in that range with their wins.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I did think about that a little bit, and I think I gave Albuquerque a couple spots higher than maybe expected as well, just based on that being in that same division. What on paper at least looks like maybe the weaker division in the league, but that doesn't always hold true. So, yeah, be interesting to see. Some other interesting teams that have a lot of variance so far in submissions are Boston and Miami. I've got Miami at 6 and Boston at 15. Where do you have those two teams?
I'm almost flipped the two. It's pretty darn close. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm basically swapping them out.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like those two are a couple of teams that people are having the toughest time ranking, just because I mean, there's so many factors, so many teams that you expect to take steps forward here with strong rosters. A lot of teams lost some players, but still have great coaching. So it'll be interesting to see, if overall skills versus coaching experience and knowledge, what one kind of wins out here in some of these cases for sure.
Yeah, and I think I leaned a little bit more towards the roster construction because I don't watch enough of every team in the league to, I'm lucky I have Buck that goes out there and sets our strats and does our lines and is a great coach for us. So he's the one that watches the other teams more than I do. So I think I kind of have to rely a little bit more on the ratings and just a little bit that I do know from how they run the team. So like Miami was a tough one for me. I had them a little higher, and then I'm looking at their ratings, and that's what I kind of moved them down on. So I know Potty spends a lot of time dissecting stuff, so another one that might make me look bad, but that I have them a little bit further down.
Yeah, and going into last season, we didn't do this power ranking exercise last season, but going into last season, I did expect Miami to struggle, and I think a number of people did, and they kind of outperformed those expectations a little bit. So I've kind of given them the benefit of the doubt again. Granted, they did lose their goaltender and a couple other key pieces as well, but so they're going into the season with a rookie goalie. So we'll see how much that impacts it. Losing Lashik and Hardaway and a few other pieces. So be interesting to see what they're able to do. And then Boston was kind of the other way, where last season I think a lot of people expected them to take a step forward and maybe capitalize on Miami's struggles and get a playoff spot out of that division, and then they struggled throughout the season despite having a pretty good roster. So we'll see if those two, I guess, predictions come true a season late, or if things kind of hold up. Who knows?
And which is the top expansion team that you put in the rankings?
That's a good question. I've got Manitoba as my top one. I do have them down at 17. I think the expansion teams this season have a chance to be the best expansion teams we've seen, but I also think it's going to be tough for them out of the gate as well. So I've got Manitoba as my top expansion team down at 17. What about you?
I have Columbus just one ahead of Manitoba.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't have the sheets open, but I think Columbus, you talk about that some people had to make difficult decisions on who to put in the expansion draft. And I think they went very heavy on the overall to just build, and they have a lot of one season contracts, I believe. Uh, but that's kind of where I gave them the nod.
Yeah. They when I was looking over the expansion team rosters, a week or two ago, I do remember saying to myself that Columbus I felt had the best like balanced roster. Like they've got some really good players. They don't have like quite the star caliber players that a couple of other teams managed to get out of expansion. Like Brooklyn's got a couple of like studs, but their Brooklyn's floor is also a little lower, having to pull so many players out of the draft into the pros. Whereas I think Columbus, just kind of top to bottom, is a lot more leveled out, a lot stronger balance wise.
Yeah, other than him picking on his own dad.
Yeah.
From having to bring him up. We all had to do that with at least one player, I think, bring him up a little earlier than we wanted. But I don't know.
Yeah.
That's where I went with the expansion group.
Yeah. No, that makes sense for sure. Awesome. Anything else you wanted to touch on with goals or these power rankings or anything like that before we move on?
No, sir.
All right. So I think we've got SAABL coming up next. So we'll hop over there in a sec. All right. Now let's move over to SAABL. Season ended a little while ago. Just had the All-Star game, the awards show not that long ago as well, and now the draft coming up next week. Sam, do you have any thoughts? I guess we'll start with the All-Star game because that just happened. How that went? I think you did a home run derby this season as well.
Yeah, we did a home run derby. Second time doing that. That went really well. It's really competitive. A lot of back and forth. Mo Yakin from the Rockhounds ended up winning it. Won it as time was running out. The last pitch came, and he hit a home run to walk it off and win it. It was a good time. So that was fun. And then rolled into the All-Star game. Had Washington, which was Team Pinkard, against the Boston Red Sox, which was Team Haskell. Uh, I was on the Boston squad playing center field there, and it was a close game, some back and forth. Washington ended up winning it, and so I guess Pinkard ended up winning it 6-5. Hits were close. There was a lot of hits, 14-11. We got quite a few of the pitchers in the game by adjusting some stamina stuff, so it was a lot of fun. The player of the game was Josh Bolton on his last game as a center fielder, so he is doing the good old position swap and going to be switching over to a pitcher. So it was pretty cool to see him get, player of the game in his last game playing hitting position. Uh, and then the other thing that I thought was kind of funny is the loser of the All-Star game was the Cy Young winner. So No Drew did not do well in the All-Star game after getting the award. Took the banquet season and had too many cocktails, I guess, but gave up the loss. But it was a fun game, a lot of back and forth. Uh, Always fun to have some of the guys in chat, some couple of home runs and a lot of back and forth. So definitely the way you want to see an All-Star game, nice and close.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun that way. Everybody's just out there to have fun, not as much stress, and yeah, just enjoy a game and hopefully not lose 15-1 or anything like that. So that's good. Glad it was a good game. Um, yeah, plenty of deserving players in there, and I'm glad to see Bolton, as you said, get the player of the game in that game. He's a good guy, active user, so seeing him do well is exciting, and then to see him changing positions, we'll see how his pitcher does moving forward. Um, yeah, so unless there's any other thoughts on that or the awards, we've got the draft coming up on June 8th at 7:30 Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. I should probably know that since I'm co-hosting it, but
Well, if you're
yeah,
there at 7:30 Eastern, that's perfect because you'll be early. It's at 8:30 Eastern. So
8:30 Eastern. Oh,
since
right, yeah, 7:30 my time. That's what I was
since,
thinking. But
since
yeah,
you're the host, then it's good if you're early. But yeah, it's gonna be 8:30, and we're gonna have a relatively short draft because one of the good things I talked about this before that we don't have a lot of people leaving the league, so not a ton of openings each season. Still not looking to expand because it's a lot of work for one person. So uh, not looking to go past 8 teams anytime soon. But it'll be a fun little quick draft. I think I mentioned it in the chat a couple times, and you and I when we were talking. Uh, Looks like a good draft class, even though it's a small draft class. So it'll be fun to get them out and on some squads and get a little bit of analysis, and us not have to worry about how fast we're going because it's not that long of a draft. So should be fun. What are you looking forward to with the draft besides the fact that you have the number one overall pick?
yeah, the number one overall pick is nice. After this draft, we're gonna end up having three former first overall picks on the roster on the Roma Ponies, so that'll be interesting. See how that pans out. Yeah, aside from that, I'm looking forward to picking once and being done, especially being hosting. I'm not gonna have to keep up with the draft board. Well, I'll keep up with the draft board for hosting purposes, but not have to maintain a personal board as well for knowing who I'm going to pick and stuff like that while I'm mid show, like I do with GOHLS a lot of times. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll be able to have our first overall pick decided before I even go on air, so I won't even have to think about it, and I can just worry about hosting. So that'll be fun. These draft shows are always a good time. I feel like I've done 50 of them in the last couple weeks or couple months with all these leagues in the off season at the same time, but they're a lot of fun. That's why we do so many of them. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I can say first overall will be a pitcher. No surprises there. Outside of that, yeah, like you said, a short draft. It'll be nice and relaxed. I think we won't have to rush. Feel like some of the GOHLS drafts would go for 4 hours, kind of thing. So you're not going to be fighting against time like that with a smaller class like this in SAABL. So I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, probably the biggest thing is being able to know who we're picking before the draft starts and not have to worry about making any picks during my hosting. And if anything were to come up anyway, Squibbs and I co-running the team helps that side of it as well. And we're not co-hosting like we were last time, doing the draft and co-hosting at the same time. So
Yeah, I'm looking. You mentioned pitcher has to be first overall. It's the only spot you're looking to fill, and there's 6 choices, and it's 6 people with some name recognition either in leagues that we play in or so naming McNamerson is one of the pitchers on there that I've heard he does a great job in oh shoot, I'm drawing a blank on the football league that caboose runs.
USFA.
USFA. I'm sorry. So, I've heard that he does a great job over there as a general manager. So, he's somebody that has some experience as well. So all 6 of them are people that are worthy of a first pick. So it's a little more difficult than usual to take that first one. If you know, I have to take a pitcher and I'm first overall, you actually have 6 difficult ones to kick around, which is a good problem. But, you have to put a little more thought into it maybe than most number 1 overalls.
Yeah, for sure. We had the number one pick last time as well, and it was, there were a few names we kicked around, but I don't think it was ever 6 of them in consideration. And this time I think we do have to take a good look at all 6 pitchers, and I think I have a pretty good idea. We still have to discuss. I think I have a pretty good idea where we're going. I'm not gonna say it's on air like you tried to get me with goals last time, but I'm not gonna reveal where we're going yet. But there's a lot, like you said, a lot of good options. Now it's just a matter of picking which one, and they're all good people for kind of different reasons, kind of fit in different boxes, if you will. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting one of them on our roster to join myself and Trev as former first overall picks on the Rumble Ponies. So you guys, I don't think have any picks coming up, if I'm not mistaken, for the Rockhounds. Do you have any thoughts on that going into the draft without needing anybody?
Yeah, I'm not afraid to say who I'm going to pick in the draft. I will be taking nobody. I was sitting in a spot. I was going to be drafting a right fielder, which both right fielders in the draft are, one of those things where it's the easy spot also, right? They're 2 good right fielders. So I felt really good about it. And then Shanahan become a free agent, and that was not expected. And, I think that for the Rockhounds, we're starting to age a little bit with some of our top players. So I figured let's try to strike while the iron's hot and gobble up Shanahan and see if we can make a run for the championship this season. So we don't have any openings after going Ironsides and Shanahan in free agency. So for us, it's about, let's see if this retool can get us to where we didn't make it to last season, and see if we can get a championship.
Yeah, and that's always good too when you're looking at the draft. You like your options, and then a big free agent kind of falls in your lap. So that's exciting. And I was looking through. We kind of did the same power rankings, which actually I kind of stole the idea from you doing it in SAABL all these seasons for goals. But so we did the same kind of thing over here. And when I was looking today at where to rank people, I was looking through the different rosters and stuff like that. And you guys are pretty solid top to bottom, I think, going into it. And yeah, so it should be a good season for you guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's only you and the Cardinals are the only ones that don't need to draft anybody. Is that right?
Correct. Kozak and I can be as drunk as we need to be during the draft.
Well, you still got a host.
Well,
Still got a co-host.
yeah, it doesn't matter. So, but yeah, we're the only 2 that we're in a good spot. I could tell that Piggyback was going to become a free agent, and I had a feeling about Ironside. So those were the 2 I was eyeing, but I thought I was going to be in the draft a little bit. But yeah, this is definitely a let's see if we can tool and get the championship roster. I mean, we're right up against cap and all that fun stuff. So fun to build it. We had the 2 rookies last season that towards the end of the year, Ugly started playing really good for us. Wonder still was struggling with the bat, but was cutting down on the errors and playing a solid third base. And neither one of them missed a progression, so I expect them to be much better this season. So very excited. I without shame put us as my choice for the number 1 in the power rankings. I think that the Sea Dogs are definitely, they didn't lose much. They lost a really good second baseman. That was all. But, still for me, the way I look at the rosters, I think the Rockhounds are 1 with the Sea Dogs as a 1B. So looking forward to season 7.
Yeah, it should be a fun one for sure. I'm looking forward to the draft, seeing what happens. And, shout out to Mr. B Collectibles, your sponsor for the draft, MrBcollectibles.com. Store/site run by Twin Screw, who many people know. So shout out to him. He supports all of our leagues. The channel is always subbing to GOHLS and PXF and probably SAABL. And yeah, good to see him. And I'm glad that he was able to get some recognition as a sponsor for the draft.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Like I mentioned, in one, I don't know, all these chats run together. I was talking to somebody the other day. You know, he's one of the ones that helped get me addicted to sim leagues. Drafted me onto the Navigators, and I think it was my second or third sim league that I ever kind of dabbled in. SFL is what got me started, and then I entered the GOHLS draft. Had no idea what I was doing. Sure, I messed up making my guy, doing my progressions, all that stuff, as everybody does when they first start. Took me, and I didn't play a single minor league game, so kind of had to ask a bunch of questions on the fly in the league. So, you know, Mike's a great guy that, like you said, he subs to our stuff, but you know, he also comments in the chat when we're having any kind of discussion or a draft show or the you know, late night sims or those types of things. He likes to add to the chat and give some questions, and always appreciated. So definitely wanted to get him a spot as, you know, the sponsor of our draft show. And, you know, we talked about in PXF possibly things of the future, trying to get help him get his website out there. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Any other thoughts on SAABL before we move on?
No, sir. We got a couple weeks and we'll be playing some baseball.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. And yeah, we'll move on over here.
All right, so that's all we've got for this week's episode. Not too much to talk about in the other leagues this week. We'll talk a little bit more about the rugby league next week. We'll talk about CBS some more when they get started. ESL's on a break right now due to stuff in the commissioner's life, so we'll talk about Lost City some more on future episodes as well. So yeah, that's all we've got for this week's episode. Thank you all for listening to us again. Hope you enjoy the show. Again, if you have any feedback, questions, ideas for the show, shoot a message to either myself or Trunin, and we'd love to hear some feedback and keep putting this show out for you guys, and hope you enjoy it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.